Hello, I'd like to start off with a little bit of terminology as I use it. What we're basically doing is we're taking a board and we're converting that board into what I call squares, and then we're taking the squares and we're sanding them and gluing them together to form a block. And then we're taking a faceplate, which screws on this end, it screws on to the lathe, and we're taking the block and gluing it onto the faceplate like this, and then this goes onto the lathe, and we take our wood turning tools and turn the block down into a bowl and cut it off of the faceplate. And this is what we end up with. So this part, so this is step 2 now. In the process of cutting the squares, there are little burrs and splinters and so forth along the edge of it, and it will interfere with trying to glue them together. So the first step that I do is to sand these squares. And so I'll show you. Now I'm putting these at about a 45-degree angle like that and moving them across the sandpaper a couple times. And then doing it on the other side. I think you might be able to see all the stuff that's coming off of there. And the next thing I'm going to do is to sand that surface flat and sand that surface flat. And the final thing and that is a square that's sanded up. So I'm going to sand up the other ones, and then I'll go together and I'll show you how they go together in the gluing process. I forgot to mention about the sanding. I call this a sanding board, and it's just a piece of like 1/4-inch plywood that's nice and flat, and it's a piece of 120 sandpaper, and I glued it on there with spray adhesive. And you know, this works too good. It works fine too, just to have a piece of paper or a piece of sandpaper, a 1/4 of a sheet or something like that to do that. But it's just convenient for when you're doing a lot of them to have a board. Easy to make. Okay, now we've got these here, and the way that my thought process is I didn't want to have like red and brown together if I could avoid it, because they're both kind of dark colored. And so I put the red in the middle because that's kind of bright and that's kind of the feature of a tension. And I put the white between that and the brown on that side. So that one, and it turned out it makes a kind of a cute looking little bowl. So anyway, the first thing I'm going to do, once I've decided on the order, and I think you could probably make many different kinds of bowls with that, I'm going to lay these out in order, and I'm going to lay them, the grain is going this way in all of them, okay? And you have to take my word for it, but it'll turn out better if we turn every other one so it's going the other direction. So then it's going to be like plywood. It's going to stay flatter and it's going to be more stable that way. So that's what I do. So now this is grain going this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. And so now I'm going to stack them up. And this is what I've found to be very useful. And this one is quite simple, but on a bigger bowl or one that has a lot of veneers or something, it's easy to get mixed up. And so here's what I do, is that I put, top one is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then I put that over on one side and draw a line to it, because that, otherwise, sometimes with one, I get it mixed up like that. So that's the order. And I have found out from experience that is better if you work your way up from the bottom. So what I'm going to do, we've got 5 things here, and I don't want to try to do 5. I've tried doing that many, and what happens when you know they go like this or something, it's very hard to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2 of them. That's 4 and 5 on the bottom here, and then I'm going to make one block out of that, and then I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 here, and make another block out of that, and then I'll bring 1, 2, 3 and set it down on top of 4, 5, and we'll have the complete block. So I'm doing 4 and 5 right now, and if you think about it now, to glue these 2 together, I'm going to put the glue in here, and I'm going to put it on the top of 5 and on the bottom of 4. So I'm just going to lay them that way. Okay? Now, the next thing, I'll show you how I do the glue. This is Tight Bond Original. Supposedly, somebody told me that it's got a longer drying time than Tight Bond 2. I always used to use Tight Bond 2, but this is supposed to be better. And this gets stuck in here. So this is my pliers to pop that loose. And so what I'm going to do now, and you want to, what I think is I want to have a complete covering of glue on these 2 surfaces that I'm going to glue together. And I don't want to have too much, because it gets really ugly if you put way too much. It squishes out the sides, and it glues the block into the press and everything. So here's what I do. I do it with, there's a slot across the top that the glue comes out of, and I do it parallel with that slot, kind of like this. And I'm going to just do both of them. Okay? Now, my second thing, what I use to spread the glue is, I just absolutely love these things. And this is called a Sili brush, S-I-L-I brush, and it's got silicone bristles in it here. And if you've ever had any experience with gluing, you might have forgotten to wrap the brush up, and it gets very hard, and you got to throw it away. This one, even if you're like me, you're absent-minded and you forget to put it, when I'm done, I put them in water. And if you forget to put them in the water, even like if you forget them overnight, I've done that, the glue doesn't stick to the bristles. And so if I forgot to put this in the water, I would put it in the water for a while, and I've got my 2 scientific tools here. I've got a toothbrush and an old plastic fork, and I can get down in here and clean those bristles out, and these have both gone through that both times. So what I do is I go around the edges first, like this, and I'm trying to keep that orientation of my numbers toward me so that I don't get them mixed up that way. And then when I'm done with this one, I try to go like that. Now I've got a complete coverage with glue, and I had a fingerprint here and a fingerprint here, and so I'll make sure that's completely covered. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other one. I'm going down that side over here. And I have to say, I've made a lot of these little bowls now. I don't find this obnoxious at all. I think this is is really cool and relaxing. Lots of times when I can't go down and can't sleep, I go down in the basement and glue up a few more blocks. Calms me down. So, anyway, okay, now I've got a good covering on here, and this one says 4, and this one says upside down 4. And so what I'm going to do is put those 2 glue surfaces together like this, and now 4 is sitting on top of 5 as I'm looking at it, and then I take and work them together. So if there was, so that getting 2 chances to have all the glue in there. Okay, so now this is what I've done after long experience. I have found that it helps the whole process if I just take those 2 boards, and I'm going to put, this is 1/2 inch, blue painter's tape, and I'm going to put it on here and go around. I used to have lots of problems with glue getting in the presses, and I spent a lot of time trying to clean the glue out. And this way, don't. And plus, it also helps to align these boards. So I make sure before I'm done, I make sure that I've got all these down in good alignment. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put my brush in the water. The next thing I'm going to do is put it, and then this is what I call a press, for lack of a better word. It's 2 5-inch by 5-inch squares of Baltic birch, 3/4 inch Baltic birch plywood. Very stable, very strong. And then what I do is to look at this, I cut 4 slots at the middle of the sides here, and the slots are about 1 inch deep, and this one looks like it's a little more than that, but they're like 5/16 inch wide. I use 5/16 inch bolts, maybe a shade out over 5/16. And then I make these as a pair. The way that I make them is put 2-sided tape between them and do all the machining on, and then I keep the orientation. So this is the top of that one, this is the top of that one, and they keep them oriented like that so they line up perfectly. Okay, so now on the inside of these, I've got some little 8-inch squares of some 1/8-inch plywood, and I cut a notch out of it. And then what I did was I made one piece that was oversized. It was, instead of being 3 by 3, it was 3 1/16 by 3 1/16, and I lined that up on there. And then I moved those squares into here, and the way that I attached them was I put a little bit of the glue on the back of these squares and set them down on there up against the 3 1/16 inch piece. And then you could just hold them there till it sets. It'll just take a few minutes to set, or I've got a pin nailer and I just pin nailed it down, and it's really nice because then they don't it stays in the middle and it doesn't get over and get glue on the screws. Okay, so now there's the thing in here. Now I want to emphasize that don't do like make 5 of these little glue blocks and then take them over and put them in here. Do them right away. I think that you should have, my wife says I talk too much, and I'm probably talking too much now, because it should be within 5 minutes you should put them in there and get them tightened down, because once the glue starts to set, then you can no longer push the glue, the 2 boards together, and that's what the press is for. So what I'm going to do this is a carriage bolt. I think these look like they're about 3.5 inch long carriage bolt. And then this is called a fender washer. It has a small hole and a big diameter, and that seems to work fine. And then I'm going to put them into the slot like this, move them down to the bottom of the slot. And then these are knobs. You can buy them on Amazon, and I like them. I bought some great big ones, and I don't doubt that you could probably get more pressure with those bigger diameter ones, but it works fine with these. These are smaller, cheaper ones. I have also done this with, these have got a 5/16 inch carriage bolt in them, and I've done them with the 1/4 inch ones are a little bit cheaper, and they work fine. I think that when you start having four screws like this, I used to use just nuts with a wrench, and you certainly can do that, but I just think it's so convenient to be able to go things and spin them on. It's kind of fun too. So anyway, here we go. And so what I'm going to do is do finger tightness on these. And then see if I can catch up with this one. I got a bigger pliers that I usually use on this. I'm tightening them down a little bit at a time, and I think my feeling is that if you can get one more turn out of them, it's finger tight plus one turn. It seems to be getting really tight. You can break the bolts if you just like get overbearing about it. So when it gets good and tight like that, I'm sure it's putting a lot of, probably hundreds of pounds of pressure from the 4 screws being tightened down. Okay, and so that's in the press now. We've got a wood burner in the basement, so that's what I do is take this down and set it on top. I actually do them downstairs. I take it and set it on top of the wood burner. And my impression is that, you know, they're probably set up really well within an hour or something, and then you can take them apart. Now, before we go on, I want to talk about 1, 2, 3 here, and show you how it does that. So I've got 1 here, 2, 3, and then this is the top, and this is the bottom of it. And so what I'm going to do is I worked on that first one. I did put 4 down, and then I put 5 on top of it, and I'm going to put 3 down, and then I'm going to put 2 on top of it, and then you'll have to take my word for it for a minute. I'm going to put 1 on top of that. And so the way that I'm going to glue them, I'll put the glue on here, the top of number 1, and I'll put glue on the bottom of number 2. And so then I put them together, so here the 2 and the 3 line up, so I know I'm doing right. Now I've got these 2, and I'm going to put it on the top of number 2 here, and then I'm going to put it on the bottom of number 1, which I turned over, and I've got it. And so now I know I'm all ready. I doubt if you can see that, but it says 1, 2, 3 right on top of each other, and I know I'm in the right order, And then I don't think I need to go any further than that. It's very simple. When I take that one out, I'm going to have 5 on the bottom, 4 on the top, and then I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to put those on top of that, put the glue on the bottom of 3 and the top of 4, and then we'll have one block done. So I think that's all I wanted to cover in this one. Okay, good.